Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the AI-powered media panel. I think for this panel, we are probably the most creative panel out of all the conference. And also, we are probably the most good-looking panel with our amazing panelists. So yeah, let's give a round of applause for our amazing panelists first. And for those of you out there, there are a few seats in the front, so feel free to come up and take a seat. With that, let's get started. So AI for media. And in terms of media, there are different types of media, right? So I think for our panel, we have a amazing lineup of panelists as well. So we have Aditya, who represent the research side, work at Meta. We have Laudis, who's an expert in AI videos. We got the 3D part covered with Michael being an expert in AI 3D. And also we have the art covered with our artist and creator, Nina. With that, maybe Michael, let's start from you. Give a quick introduction about yourself, and then let's go that way.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Gold. I'm an entrepreneur by way of background, and I worked with a research lab at NYU for about 5 years, spinning out AR and VR projects and startups from the lab, and now currently teach AI and 3D at the School of Visual Arts, as well as building out a variety of open source tools, which we'll talk about later on in the panel.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Michael. Hi, everyone. My name is Nina Hawkins. I've been a multimedia artist for over 15 years. I have started in fashion photography and portraiture, and as well as filmmaking. Over the pandemic, I moved on to the 3D animation, character creation, and I have been experimenting with AI for the last 3-4 years. I'd say my main focus is virtual avatars, but also world building and etc. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Very relevant avatar for me. My name is Laudis Menard. I'm the founder of a platform called Argel. It's a platform where you can create videos based on human-like avatars. So you can either clone yourself from a video or use one of our avatars. And we also own the technology behind that.
Hey everybody, this is Aditya. I work as an applied research scientist at Meta. A lot of background recently in text and generative AI. And yeah, excited to be part of this panel.
Awesome. So Laudis, let's start from you. You know, AI video has been around for quite a while, right? Even before this ChatGPT wave, we've seen all these, deepfake videos, and this technology have been evolving for almost a decade. So from your perspective, what's the primary use case today, and where are we in the AI video industry? What are we looking ahead?
Yeah, I think in video, a lot of people were too early for that business. The technology was not ready. And mostly the people, the audiences were not ready to see that. And I think the LLMs and ChatGPT kind of allowed people to be more aware of the use of technology for video. In our case, what we see a lot, so there are two types of video. There's a really creative video. For people that know that, Sora from OpenAI is a more creative side. What we do is videos with humans in it. And so our goal here, the main use case we're seeing really is any kind of text that needs to be more engaging. So people are realizing that as video gets cheaper, they have a bunch of stuff that is very boring: PDF, internal trainings, documentations, emails, advertisements, all of these very boring text formats, and that they can actually transform that into much more engaging kind of videos. So today, these are the use cases that are really driving the market. We're seeing also SEO, a lot of people that have blogs with 1,000 articles and that want to use, create a TikTok channel or a YouTube channel out of that and drive traffic from there. I think in the future, technologies like ours are getting better and better by the day. So it's harder and harder to see the issues with it. And I think in the future, people will really see that as a marketing performance tool. It used to be something like, oh, it's going to be hard, expensive, it's branding. I'm going to have to pay an agency thousands of dollars to do anything related to video, really. Now you can have one person in your team just managing the whole video, launching TikTok accounts, doing A/B testing, creating a training for your company. So I think this is where the market is going. And I think social media in a couple of years will mostly be AI video. For the record, I have a TikTok account in France. And one of the drivers that I did that drove me to do that company was that I couldn't bear filming myself every morning, like really looking good every morning. The cat is jumping on the table. You have a million issues in production, post-production. And so now I have my own avatar that I can basically use to generate and type text every morning and post that to TikTok.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's amazing to hear that we've got two content creators on this panel as well. Lotus, so from your perspective, is it social media one of the first applications where we'll see real world adoption of AI video technologies, especially on the consumer side, or you think there are something else as well?
Well, I think right now it's more used for internal use cases in companies because the quality was not good enough, and the roughest audience you will get is on social media. They vote by watching, they vote by liking, and if it's not good enough, it's not passing the test. And so far, it wasn't good enough. Our goal is to make it good enough for social media, so very engaging and allow people to reach their goals there. So I think we're going to reach that threshold where, social media is going to be the main use case, and most people will not realize or not care that it's AI avatar. One thing that I can that can support that is the fact that social media platforms support that. They embrace it, actually. They ask you to put labels. Actually, TikTok launched their own avatars, but they see it as a way for more people to create video and more. And if the audiences actually watch it, they don't mind about it. So yeah, I think social media is going to be the main driver in the next couple of years.
Amazing. Aditya, let's come to you. So you are a researcher at Meta, right? So you probably represent the most technical brain in this panel. So from your perspective, what are you thinking about, different architectures, right, around different models? How is that impacting, the AI for media space? And especially is Transformer the answer here? Will Transformer architecture kind of just rule the space for the next decade? What's your opinion?
So I think it's a very interesting question because there's a lot of investment that's happening in transformers at the moment. So not just like there are specialized architectures that are coming for faster inference. So I just feel like there's a lot of momentum in the transformer architecture. It definitely, like from a theoretical point of view, is not the most efficient in certain things. And we are seeing some early signs of like state space models. There is S5, S4. There was a talk earlier in this conference about those. But they haven't sort of like percolated to like actual models being used and trained. And I think it's just, like I was saying, it's a momentum question. We have limited resources. And right now, I think those resources are being invested into scaling and compute. And at some point, when the cycle shifts, I think we'll start seeing more efficiencies into other kinds of architectures, which will take away like some of the shortcomings that transformers have at the moment.
Gotcha. And, AI comes with a lot of risks, right? And I think a lot of, bias and a lot of issues around risk of AI can be solved at a architecture or model building process, right? What's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so I think the broad area of responsible AI, it's very relevant, especially like in richer media. Like there is text, and then as we sort of go into more immersive media like images and videos, we are just interacting with higher density of information. So there's the issues that are pertinent are basically like more representation of lighter skin tones, or like men being shown as better outcomes, like being doctors or CEOs. And like broadly, I think there are like three ways to tackle this. One is like at a data level. There's a lot of research done in like disassociating like gender stereotypes in the data that the models have been trained on. Then there are things on the algorithmic level, which is like at different stages of like pre-training, in training, and post-training, you can do certain algorithmic like changes. And then there is like evaluations. I think right now, like how do we evaluate things? So there's this whole field where we can look at like our fairness measures on like a data set, which is more representative of our current times and does not like perpetuate the stereotypical biases we have.
Sounds like we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
Nina. you are the artist representative of this panel. So from your world, how is AI shifting your content creation process as an artist?
I would say, in general, I have been excited about AI for quite a while. In 2020, actually, when we met, you know that I've been researching on all the AI tools I could get my hands on because I was seeing AI as more of a partner, creative partner that I could use to kind of, push forward my process, help me do things that, menial tasks that I'm not so excited about. And meanwhile, I can, socialize and do things that I can do actually in person, like do photo shoots and etc. And then come back and have AI finish the tasks that I wouldn't want to do. That kind of was like my ideal, situation that I was looking for at the time. And there were some AI platforms in 2020 that were available, but the quality wasn't there. Of course, needless to say, after the pandemic in 21, when Midjourney popped off in 22, like I was super excited, over the moon. And I see how at the same time there was like a little bit of a momentary fear in a way, because I was like, wow, like even Midjourney 2 at the time was creating the most trippiest art that I could ever imagine. And I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to top that. This is really cool and interesting and something I wouldn't think about. Or actually, it would be really on point with my vision and replicate something that I wanted, but maybe even better. Sometimes not. Like, of course, it's a dance that you have to, work with prompts and work with input that you're feeding it. Overall, I think it's a beautiful, amazing tool in the skill set, and I already have a lot, and it's just one of the tools that I use. I think using AI more of like a brush rather than a final canvas is the answer. And you know what they say, AI is not going to take your jobs. It's the people who use AI will. So yeah, I think overall it's really helping on productivity. It's really helping on time. Like with my Lilium Labs, the avatar incubator that I made, where I replicate humans. We did like a modeling agency that we, digitized all the girls and launched this real life modeling agency avatar division. So for that, we started with 3D tools. And for me, in order to make an avatar, it took months to do that project. Like one avatar could take 1 week, could take a couple months, really depends on the client and how they see themselves. So there's a lot of tweaking involved. There's a lot of like animation, rigging, motion capture, texturing, hair, clothes. There's just so many, elements that are involved in it, and rendering, a lot of troubleshooting as well. So it's just a very lengthy, costly process, and it's still pretty expensive. And in a way, there's a lot of uncanny valley still, because people can still see that it's 3D. And with AI, the technology is moving so much faster. Of course, it's not ideal just yet, but we're only a couple years in, right? So I feel like in the next year, we will be able to achieve amazing results. Already, I'm seeing, first of all, just a huge jump in how much faster I can make the avatars. So let's say if I can make very quickly, right? Like 10 avatars, 3D avatars a day. I feel like with AI, if I'm still doing it manually, maybe 100 avatars a day, right? But then if I have an automated process where I just plug and play, then it's just gonna grow exponentially. So I feel like, the time and the realism that I get with AI is so much greater, and I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, sounds like it's being a tool that increase productivity quite a lot, right? And so Nina did an amazing presentation about her work yesterday. For some of you who haven't checked out her work, definitely look it up and check out her amazing artworks. It's gonna be mind blowing for sure.
Thank you, Ryan.
Michael, so you are an expert in 3D for AI, right? Or AI for 3D. So I think compared to the other type of media from image, voice, video, 3D is probably the most immature one, right? Why is AI 3D so challenging, and where are we in the AI for 3D as an industry?
Yeah, the high level answer is that there are so many 2D images out there that you have all this prior art that makes it easier to train models that make AI models that make 3D meshes. And so there's less prior art in the 3D space. But what we have now is we have some 3D AI models that work pretty well, and they make art that is, for lack of a better term, a little bit lumpy. So it's a good starting point for 3D artists, professional 3D artists, to get content that they can use as 3D concept art. It also makes learning how to do 3D modeling and rendering a little bit easier. So what's interesting right now is that we've reached a little bit of an inflection point where the open source AI tools have flipped the 2D tools, like where Midjourney now faces serious competition from open source. Just a show of hands from the audience here. Who here is familiar with Comfy UI, the tool? Comfy UI. So got about only 10%. Now, Comfy UI is a tool that you can run, artists can run locally on their MacBooks if you have a Silicon MacBook, on NVIDIA computers, if you have a modern GPU, that gives you full access visually to all of the latest, greatest 3D models. And you can kind of wire together a workflow. There's over 100 million views on Comfy UI related tutorials on YouTube. So highly encourage anybody who wants to get into 2D AI creation, 3D AI creation to check out Comfy UI, and happy to talk more about it later on. But yeah, it's coming, and it's going to be 2024, the remainder of the year, 2025, I think is going to be a year where 3D AI really takes off.
I agree. And, as an investor in both AI and spatial computing space, I think the intersection of these two sectors are particularly interesting. And also, I was able to attend the GTC earlier this year, where Jensen Huang did a keynote. And in the keynote, I noticed that over 90% of the applications and the use cases he's talking about, from enterprise simulations, right, warehouse digital twins, different kind of digital doubles. So these are all 3D based application, right? So Michael, from your world, what do you think is number one killer use case for AI 3D at the moment?
So one of the things that that Jensen Wang presented at SIGGRAPH 2 weeks ago was this world builder demo where he had a little girl, and this seems like science fiction, but you can actually really do this now. He had a little girl who was prompting, saying, I want a tree there. I want the tree to be bigger. I want the tree to have more leaves. And she was creating a virtual world, programming it just by thought-based prompts. So for film, we're already seeing this a lot with virtual production, creating the environments. For 3D games, you can have games, and you will have games where the worlds are procedurally created and unique for each level. Think Minecraft, but think like instead of Super Nintendo graphics, think PC, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 quality graphics. We're about at that level where you can have really interesting procedurally generated worlds that are made in part by AI. And I think that's going to really change interactive experiences for the next generation of game players and media consumers.
Right. That's such an interesting application, right? We were talking yesterday that it almost feels like it's what's in the story of Westworld come true, right? So, it's sometimes really interesting to think about what an interesting time we're living, where a lot of sci-fi stories we cannot imagine are becoming a reality. So speaking of which, in your domain, right, each of you are pioneers and exploring the frontier territory in your domain. So in your domain, what do you think are some of the hidden treasures, right? Some of the things that when you are working on it, you cannot discover on the road but you feel like, oh, the public haven't realized that, right? Where are the hidden gems in your domain? So this is a open question, and feel free to answer in any kind of order.
Okay, I can start. Okay. I'll take the first one because I think there might be overlapping treasures. So I think recently I've been really fascinated by just the abilities in like foundational models trained on videos and text. If you get a chance, just look at them. The companies that are doing that is OpenAI Sora, Runway, Luma. And it's fascinating how much physics they have learned just by looking at raw video. Like they can, when you actually put out a fire, it is able to like simulate what putting out a fire means if you ask it to do that. And it's, I think like 3D, from what I understand, like 3D is like a very difficult problem to solve. Now there are two ways to solve it. You model like different views and model the physics behind it. Like, okay, I'm taking a lateral cross-section view or like a top view. And the crazy part is that these world models have been able to like somehow semantically learn those 3D views, and nobody knows how. It's mostly, I think the argument is scale and just emergence, like we have seen in text. And I think it's just like starting to come up as like some of the companies have been able to scale these to like petabytes of like trillions of tokens, I think, in terms of like video tokens. So I think that is very, very interesting. And they have like, if you look at a video generated from an image, so this is like a pipeline. So an image generates a video, and then you can use 3D reconstruction on that video using some existing pipelines. And you can see that it has modeled a lot of those 3D mesh points very correctly. So from an image, you can actually have a very defined 3D graph. And I think this workflow is just fascinating to me. I was like, wow. So yeah.
I'll go next. Nina?
I have a very non-technical hidden treasure that I was thinking about. I would say, in a way, it's giving you like a very interesting dopamine boost. Like, me and my friend, we're just always so excited to play with like Midjourney or, any other of the 10 tools that we use to like generate stuff. And there's this sense of satisfaction when you get what you want, and when the machine understands you, you just feel seen, in a way. I don't know, it's like a really interesting connection with the algorithm, especially if you've been doing it for a while, and it kind of starts to understand your taste, understand what you're into, and you get things that you don't expect. And it's just, in general, I feel like that's like this little interesting connection that you form. Yeah, I don't know why that came to mind, but I feel like that's quite interesting.
So the hidden treasure is you just feel happier when you're using AI.
Yeah, I just feel like accomplished or something, because I'm like, I want to have this done, and you get instant gratification. Well, if you get it right? Because sometimes you don't. It's not always, one fits all. But when you do, and especially if you spend like, let's say, a good hour to get what you want, but not 10 hours and not 5 minutes, or actually, if you put a prompt and you right away get what you want, that's like just like complete happiness. I don't know. In a way, it just makes me happy. It makes me excited.
Well, I can sense you are very happy just by talking about it. Lotus, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with both of you, especially on video. I spent 2 years of my life self-producing a movie, and I shot like 25 days in a castle in France. It was a nightmare. Everything went wrong. Everything broke. Everything was too expensive. And I think there's, especially in video, this threshold you need to have to actually do something that is that has a good output, a good quality. And if you're just a kid in a basement, like there's no way you can do something that's really cool. I think in a couple of years with that kind of technology, we'll have so many people excited about that, and the technology is going to go so fast that maybe 3 or 4 kids in a basement will be able to do something as gripping as Interstellar. And I think this is an incredible way of thinking how creativity can be more accessible, even the hardest medias out there. So that's what I'm really excited about.
Gotcha. Michael?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. When I teach students in grad school for the MFA program, they've gotten good at like learning this stuff from YouTube. Like they're coming to it from that. They're already good, and it's just a place for them to hunker down and refine their skills with like-minded people. So I have two hidden treasures that I'll share with everyone. I guess the first is with the open source models, running them locally on your own computer. What artists are able to do is you're no longer thinking about, oh, I have this many credits per month. Per month I need to be kind of economical and reasonable at the experiments I do. You're thinking, well, I have these computers. I better set an experiment to run before I go to sleep at night, so I can wake up with this queue that's been running for 8 hours and I can see all of the treasures that I've uncovered. So it gives artists, I think, a bit freer of a mindset to experiment with, because they've sunk the cost in the GPU already, and they might as well use it and run the experiment. So that really opens up more art to be created. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the LLMs give artists superpowers to code. Artists by nature are very good at experimentation and very good at visual programming. But what the LLMs can do with GitHub Copilot, AWS was here at the show floor promoting Q, which is a free version of GitHub Copilot for developers. Anyone can install this and tap into the arcane knowledge of puppeteering 3D content creation tools like Blender programmatically with Python, something that was really not for the faint of heart before, because the documentation wasn't that great. It was difficult to learn. Now, instead of getting stuck programming, what artists can do is just, if they get confused, if the code doesn't work, just ask GitHub Copilot, why doesn't this code work? Or what does this code mean? And it's something that can really help artists achieve this flow state of making their own tools. Like Nina alluded to before, like AI is a paintbrush. You can make your own paintbrushes with this, instruments that only maybe you know how to use as an artist, but that you can play very, very well. So that's really, really exciting. And we have that now with the current state of the art. It's not like a future thing. Artists can do this right now.
That's really fascinating. Now all the artists can become programmers without learning programming. That's amazing. And I just thinking about this, such an interesting topic. I want to chip in and share some of my hidden treasures as well. So I just realized that when I started this panel, I was focusing on introducing my panelists without introducing myself. So hello, everybody. My name is Wang. I'm the founding partner of Outpost Capital. And we are a Silicon Valley-based VC firm focused on frontier technology investments. We've been making investments in AI since 2016. And also we invest in sectors like spatial computing, blockchain, robotics, and renewable energies. So in my world, I look into a lot of companies in the spatial computing, immersive, VR, AR space, right? And I think my hidden treasure of the day is that currently AI is as a learning machine. We all know it's only as good as what kind of data we feed to the model, right? And these days, with all these ultra large language models, we pretty much have bringing all the documented human knowledge into those models, right? And if we look into the whole data set, currently how is a data set is generated is still through our smartphone, is still through traditional documentations. And I think especially with Michael, Nina, you do a lot of stuff in the 3D and VR, AR world as well. As the next generation of all these VR, AR headsets become available and become mainstream, now we will unlock a whole new data set that not only describe where we are, what we do, what's our transaction, who we are talking to, but it also unlock an entirely new data set of with eye tracking, facial tracking, 4VT rendering, all these technologies, understand where your attention is, where you are looking at. What's your mood today? Are you happy? Are you sad today? Right? So you can learn so much more about you with all this behavior data. And I think, if we think about all this logistic data is dangerous enough, what's going to happen when all this behavior suddenly become available, right? AI can provide so much more emotional value, but at the same time, it can know so much more about you and you as a human being. And I think, it's just fascinating to think about this particular intersection. And I think that's also another area where we might be able to see exponential growth in the next few years as well.
Actually, I wanted to add on that. I was seeing some article earlier yesterday that AI, just looking at your picture, can now predict if you're straight or gay and like what religion you are and etc. better than a human. So it can like 90% predict your sexual orientation, your religious views, your political views, etc. While humans can do like 60% probably.
Wow, that's amazing to hear.
AI knows a lot about us.
And if there's a predictive model, right, they can run that through, people and to find out all the different segmentations. Amazing. So let's turn this to another question. In your space, right, I think each of you are constantly running into situations where you feel like, oh, this is different from what I thought previously, right? When you are, going down each directions in your own rabbit hole. So with that, what do you think in your domain is a number one misunderstood or counterintuitive thing that you think, that the public haven't realized, or like when you discovered it, it feel like, oh, this is so counterintuitive. I never thought about this before.
So this goes back to the uncanny valley, and I think it's a misunderstood thing, and it's something that we spoke about a lot when I was with the research lab at NYU. There's a big difference between realistic and believable, right? Realism is something that looks like what we see in nature. Believable is a different entity altogether. Like, for example, you have, you can have a real looking white rabbit that scurries across the stage here, and we'd expect it to hop and move in a certain way, right? And then you could have a cartoon rabbit in 2D, like Bugs Bunny, super believable, not realistic, or a cartoon rabbit in 3D, like Roger Rabbit, right? Super believable, but the laws of physics don't really apply. Now, when we think about art that we interact with in 3D, most people say what they want is something realistic, and then what you end up with is content that looks really real, but once you start to animate it, it doesn't live up to the design fiction. If you err towards stylized and cartoony, you really end up with something that tells more believable stories that more people will interact with. So I encourage everyone in the audience, when they're thinking about their art that they might want to do with AI and 3D, think about believability and value that over realism, and you'll probably wind up with a better finished product.
Yeah, so I think that's super interesting, the uncanny valley, because as we're doing Avatar, so the bad word for that is deepfakes, a lot of people are like, oh, this is definitely not believable, or we're not going to believe that. And so one thing experiment we've been running a lot is, if I send you a video, you know who I am, you know what I do with my company. So you're going to look at the details, and you're probably going to tell me, oh, at 5 seconds, I can see a detail on the lid that's not working. And I've been trying the same experiment and telling to people that are not me, just send that to your friends and ask them if, and most people, the vast majority of people, don't notice. We know that a bunch of our clients have Instagram channels, TikTok channels that are growing super fast where nobody knows it's AI. So I think this is very interesting, because when I talk to the people that are using our platform, usually they're going to focus on very small details and be like, oh, well, I saw that wasn't working perfectly. But then I usually tell them, like, put that in front of your audience. Don't tell them, see how they react. And most of the time they come back saying, wow, I'm super surprised. I edited the video well. And basically everybody was super happy with the results. So that's, I think, the most impressive thing I've realized in the past couple of months. And the technology keeps getting better.
So, as a creator, you always have a sharp eyes and you want to be a perfectionist, want to make everything perfect. But something that's kind of like 99% good sounds like it's good for most of the use cases.
Yeah, even the voice, usually we don't really hear our own voice. So the person that clones themselves will tell us, oh, I don't, that's definitely not my voice. And I'm like, send that to your friends. They're like, oh, that's pretty good. Actually, that's actually sounds like you. So we all have like a very different perspective on ourselves.
That's very interesting. Nina?
I would say for me, what's counterintuitive in the avatar space, in general, I think the idea that like the avatars are gonna overtake, and there's, at least with someone who worked with a modeling agency, a big pushback that we get is that, oh, they're gonna take the jobs of the models, and now no one wants real people. I think that thought is very unproductive. We just coming back to the idea that like, I think it's all about the communication with AI and like how you form that relationship, and that if you using it to represent you, it can actually extend your career lifespan. I think in that way, because for example, when we have an avatar of a model and the model wants to go on like a maternal leave, or she's sick and something else, or doesn't want to do modeling anymore, but she would have like a job like in Paris and in Tokyo at the same time. Like, I feel like the thought of being able to take on all those jobs as her avatar, while actually not even being physically there, it's very interesting. And it's coming back to the whole topic of the digital immortality that I talked about yesterday. To me, it's just still like something that I feel like we need to educate people on and realize that it actually helps you to expand your career rather than taking away from it.
Yeah, sounds like we all need our avatars to work for us. Aditya.
So I'll give a technical perspective here. So I think one of the most counterintuitive things that I've seen is just how like simplicity trumps like complexity, and learning versus understanding. So most of my career pre-Gen AI has been like very like first principles, like why is this happening? And I think like the most like recently, most of the abilities that we have seen in like foundational models across language or videos, nobody explicitly models any kind of like why is this happening, or you should have model physics, or there is no inductive bias introduced which basically tells it that this is how it should be. And it seems very like, okay, now just give more data, but it's a decently big thing. If you think about like natural language processing and vision, it took like, there have been like handcrafted features of semantics and grammar for like 30 years. And they basically just, and like people used to draw lines and like find lines on like images, and that has been sort of thrown away. And people have to rethink like all those ways of modeling images in text in the last 1 year. And that's like very counterintuitive. And I think that's sort of, I don't know where it will extend to, and how we learn versus understand things. Are we learning? Are we actually understanding? But in the end, it's working. So I think that's very interesting to me.
Amazing. We are running short on time, so let's conclude the session. Each of you share a final thoughts. Share, let's say, one sentence final thoughts. Okay, let's make it brief, and then we should have time for 2 questions from the audience. Maybe Michael, let's start from you.
So just expanding on Aditya's thought, trial and error, be comfortable with that, and try to get yourself into a good flow state when you're working with these models to be creative, so that the trial and error does feel rewarding to you. But be comfortable with trial and error.
I would say use AI as your creative partner rather than a foe, and communicate. Use it as think about it as a human, and how you can communicate with it is to get the best out of it.
It sounds like this human make you happy as well.
Exactly.
Love this.
Yeah, I think even if every new technology has drawbacks and risks, we must remember that they're tools and that they could usually be used for good, for accessibility and creativity. And so we shouldn't be too quick to judge a technology good or bad.
I think the most thing that as somebody using this, the skills you'll need to develop is just critical thinking, because from thinking to the actual product, most things are going to be automated in some way or form. So I think critical thinking and being able to adapt to use those tools is how I see like be able to like sustain in this economy.
Critical thinking. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for our amazing panelists. So the question is, a lot of artists are fear of, AI could steal their art style and their creation. So as artists, what's the best practice?
I guess I'll answer that. I feel like the interesting thing about everything that's turning digital in general is that the value of everything that you do physically goes up. So in the world where 90% of content is made by AI, if you make your content yourself with your hands, that will actually evaluate it higher. So, yeah.
And I think that there's a few interesting points to this. Almost immediately overnight in the content creation pre-visualization space, what we saw is instead of people making mood boards out of images made on Google taken from Google Images and making mood boards with that for previs, they would use Stable Diffusion models or Midjourney models to get the team on the same page. So I say that using these tools as part of your pre-visualization is one thing. In the final product, it's another. Also, if you're worried about kind of feeding the machine as an artist and contributing to Midjourney, you can run all this stuff locally on your own machine, train it off your own art, and get more information for yourself about what you want to create. And it's totally air gapped. It's not shared with the internet at all. So that's one way of doing it where you're not at risk of your own art being stolen, and you don't have to feel that you're using stolen art for it.